All right, everybody, welcome to Samurai Blitz. We have another J6 that we're going to be interviewing today. He has a wild story that he wants the public to hear about. I've heard a little bit of it, and it is definitely worthy of y'all listening to it. This is Pete Schwartz. He was handed the longest sentence at the time for his participation in January 6th. And he's going to come in here and tell us a little bit about his experiences in the DC Gulag and his experience at the rally to the Capitol, to his prison time, and so forth. So thank you, Pete, for taking the time to come on this podcast, bro. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure the audience does too. So go ahead and introduce yourself the way, if I didn't do you any justice, because I tend to do that once in a while.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on. Like you said, I'm Pete Schwartz, and I was victimized by the government. I walked into the largest government entrapment scheme in the history of the United States. And I mean, I'm not saying that just lightly. That's actually absolutely what it was, and that's what happened that day. I'm a traveling welder, and so at the time, I was working in Pennsylvania, and I'd always been wanted to go to one of these speeches and the stuff, and I just was never able to with my schedule and whatnot. So that time it worked out. I was 3 hours away from DC, working outside Pittsburgh, and so I decided I was going to go, and I was married at the time, so I went with my wife. We went to watch Trump speak, and we did believe it was going to be historic. What we thought was going to happen is we thought that Trump was going to kind of give us a little scolding and tell us that, look what almost happened. We almost got the election stolen from us and this and that. And I feel like most people in the crowd probably felt that way. And what we didn't realize is that while we're at the speech, there was a group of people who were set out to entrap us already down at the Capitol, who had already kicked off a riot and stuff like that. And we're still at the Trump speech, which is really probably one of the, I would almost say, spiritual environment. It was so happy. Everybody was there on the same purpose, and all walks of life are just there getting along great and stuff. It was fantastic. I mean, it was a great experience. I've never been around that many people in one place, for one thing. There was over 1 million people there. And so the speech was great. And I kind of was clued in that something was wrong when Trump kept reiterating. He's like, well, if Mike Pence does the right thing. And I just assumed at that point that Mike Pence was on Trump's team. And I didn't expect any problems. I thought he was going to send the election for the emergency audit like everybody was hoping. And so then we're walking down from the speech. We get all the way down to the Capitol, and we had no intentions. We didn't go there to protest or anything because we didn't believe there was going to be anything to protest. We thought everything was going to work out fine. So when we arrived down there, the closer we got to the Capitol, we started noticing that there was a huge change in the mood and the environment, and there's a bunch of chaos going on up towards the Capitol building. So we couldn't really see because we weren't close enough to the chaos to see what was going on. So the woman I was married to at the time, she said, well, I can see over the crowd. She held her phone up and started videoing it so we could pull it down and see what was happening there. And 59 seconds into it, she already has a sting ball that buzzes right through her hair. And like, we're fully under attack because the part we were at, we were on the west side of the Capitol, but a little towards the north part. And all the people that were at the front line that were having the conflict with the cops, they were having the conflict as well, but there was cops standing behind them launching CS gas and sting balls and everything out into the crowd where we didn't even know what was going on at this point. This continued for probably a good solid 20 minutes. And then the police line broke where the chaos was up there. And unbeknownst to me at that time, I saw this later on video, they had packed up all their munitions and everything and planted some duffel bags full of mace. So the CS gas is behind us. The crowd's getting funneled, bottlenecked into this little area because everybody's pressing forward at this point because there's still all the people from the Trump speech gradually flowing up. And we're about a quarter of the way to the front. And so there's no place to go. So we get funneled into this area. And I said, we're getting maced in the face. And by this point, I've been maced in my face around 14 times. And I haven't done anything. I haven't spoken to a police officer. No conflict, nothing at this point, And so I walk by, I see these mace canisters. And I grab a couple and pass them out. And I indiscriminately spray some of it to keep them off because they're closing back in. And we've been maced so many times already for not doing anything. I'm basically just trying to defend myself and my then wife at the time. And so the chaos dies down a little bit there, and they funnel us up to, they call it the tunnel, and that's where the main conflict was on the west side. And we're up there, and everybody's yelling and screaming, and it's kind of chaotic. So they're like, there's people that need help in there. So we walk up into the tunnel, and all we see is a conflict of pushing. And I never got any closer than like 4 people away from any police officer. Never had any physical contact with none or anything like that. We turned around and we got out of there because it was just full of all kinds of different chemicals. CS gas, mace, everything. You can't breathe in there. We get out, we're standing there, and they start breaking windows. And this is getting way out of control.
Yeah.
Home. That was my whole day there that day. I was actually on the Capitol grounds for approximately, I think it was 42 minutes, but give or take a couple minutes. It was less than 45 minutes that I was actually on the grounds. And we left that day probably around, it was like 10 or 12 minutes after 3 o'clock is when the video shows us leaving the grounds. And so I didn't really think I was in trouble for anything, you know what I mean? Because I hadn't actually committed any crimes or anything. So I wasn't hiding from the police. I live in Kentucky, but because I work long jobs, so I had rented a place in Pennsylvania. And people around Kentucky said, you know, about a week after all this, and I'd seen it on the news, which I did not recognize the event that I saw on the news as the event I witnessed with my own eyes, which is pretty crazy because I see this on the news and I'm like, is this staged footage? Or this is not the event that I saw, you know, it wasn't like that. And so then the FBI apparently had sent some people around looking for me, and they just said they wanted to question me. So I'm all the way in Pennsylvania. I wasn't dodging them or anything, but I didn't feel like I'd done anything wrong. So I certainly wasn't hiding from them either. And by February,
I was gonna say, Pete, just because like there's a lot of interesting things that we passed by. I just want to say first of all, sorry to interrupt. If that ball hit your wife, what kind of damage do you think that would have done? Like would it done like severe damage, or was it?
Well, later at one point she did end up getting hit by one. It landed by her feet, and it left probably a foot-long welt and bruise on the inside of her leg.
So if it hit her head, that would have been severe.
Yeah, I mean, that's dangerous stuff. I mean, they call it non-lethal munitions, and I suppose if they use it in the proper way that they're supposed to, I suppose it would be non-lethal. But they were just randomly just shooting innocent people. And I mean, they were well aware that when they're launching these munitions over the heads of the people they have the conflict with, they're well aware that they're shooting into an innocent crowd. I mean, that's pretty premeditated.
Yeah, I do. I wanted to stop on that part because I was like, yeah, that sounds intense. Because I'm thinking because it hit her hair, so that's very close proximity to her head, and I'm like, shit, that would have just done some severe damage, and I didn't want to bypass that part of it. So there was a lot. So the police were agitating quite a bit on their end, from what I hear.
Absolutely.
Also, I did want to establish. You said there was planted mace. Like in court, did it come out that the FBI or somebody planted that mace, or is that just an assumption that you came up with because it was just standing there kind of thing?
Well, absolutely not. They didn't let me have any type of evidence to help myself in court. So like a lot of this stuff I discovered later along the way. Like they even this is unusual, but the prosecution filed a motion, one of the pretrial motions, requesting that the judge not allow me to use self-defense as a defense to my case. And
yeah, because that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah,
and
that's the thing.
There was no due process. I mean, from day one, there was zero due process because my phone, part of the way they convicted me on the 1512 charge, which is the obstruction of an official proceeding, is every federal felony requires a mens rea, which is basically, in normal terms, that's just intent. And so on January 4th, I received a text message on my phone, and it wasn't actually from Ted Cruz. I just believe it's one of those survey messages that people receive. and it said, "Hey, it's Ted Cruz, and I'm going to object to the certification of the 2020 election. Do you support me?" And I responded with 2 words. I said, "Yes, sir." And they used that as mens rea that I went down to the Capitol with the intent to stop the election from being certified, which
is
even more
absurd.
interesting.
Which is absurd.
Yeah, it's crazy. Is that when by the time we went down to the Capitol, like I said, there was 2 different types of January 6ers. There was the entrappers and the entrapped, and I was one of the entrapped. These people already had Congress in recess before I even set foot on the grounds. So clearly I didn't obstruct them personally, and I never set foot in the building. So, I mean,
Also, you never went in there either.
I still have never set foot in that building. So I got 14 years and 2 months, absolutely nothing. And what infuriates me about it is I had Judge Amit Mehta, who's one of the worst political hacks there is. And
yeah,
he's not a stupid man.
I know him well. Well, I don't know him well, but I've read about him quite a bit.
Yeah. He's not a stupid man. He's an evil man. So when he sat there through the course of this trial, and I had 11 different charges that they ended up giving me, if there's anybody in this world that knew I was innocent, especially according to the definition of the law, it was that man right there. And his one sole job is to referee. You have the prosecution and you have the defense. And his job is to make sure that operates fairly. So when he saw that it wasn't going fairly, he should have thrown the whole case out. He should have never let this happen. I mean, he is 100% wrong. He's a disgrace to this system. We don't need people like that and with any kind of power, because if he's there to do, he only has one job and he's refusing to do it, you know?
Yeah, no, it's true. A lot of these judges are just advocates now. They're just, I mean, that's all they are. And yeah, he definitely is somebody that's taken the law into his own hands and become the judge and executioner all in one.
Yeah.
And I do want to say, yeah, that's pretty crazy. 14 years for that shit. I do have some pictures, and I would love to just get in the mindset of what you were thinking, because I'm thinking too, it's like a big mosh pit, right? It's like fucking some Slayer, and we're like, yeah, let's do this shit. Like an oversized mosh pit, which, I mean, a mosh pit I wouldn't want to be in. 1 million people sounds intense, man. And I know, I know one of the ladies got stomped, right? And one of the
Roseanne Boylan.
Roseanne Boylan, yes, there you go. And that's sad in itself. But again, I just want to see like what I want to show the audience, like what you were seeing during this time period. So this is you in the red bandana, correct? And what are you thinking at this moment? What's going on in your mind?
We actually, when we started getting sprayed with the mace, I put this bandana around my face to try to breathe, which really you'll see that I barely have it on, because that turned out to be a horrible idea, because all it did was take the mace that I was getting sprayed with and hold it onto my face. So
that mask, those fucking masks. But yeah.
Right.
So
but at that time, I was trying to protect myself. As you can see, there's a lot of chaos. People beside me have just been sprayed and stuff. Everybody's getting hosed down, and it's a crazy situation. But my reaction to this was, I went into like a hyper awareness mode, because I don't know who's what, and I don't know what's going on around me. I mean, there's people that are wearing Trump gear, but they're chanting leftist chants and stuff like that. They're doing the hands up, don't shoot, and
wow,
whose house, our house. And I'm like, what is really going on here? I'm totally confused. And the thing that I was most shocked by, I'll never forget this, is when all this is happening, and I'm getting sprayed in my face and stuff, and I look around, and all these people around me have gas masks on, right? I went to a Trump speech, and I'm like, who thought to bring gas masks? You know what I mean?
You just never know when this, these chemical attacks happen, man.
Right.
Like, what the fuck? Like, okay, yeah, if you're wearing a gas mask, something is up for sure. So you're kind of like in full survival mode in this part, right?
Absolutely.
And I also want to show this one, because I assume this is the tunnel that you were speaking of, and I just want to kind of get your mindset, what you're thinking, because I know I would be thinking like, what the fuck, like we need to get up out of here. So just want to get your take on this. So this is the tunnel that you speak of, is that correct?
Yeah, that's it. You can see
yeah, that looks like an intense mosh pit for sure.
Yeah, and my face is all red from how many times I've been maced and the CS gas and stuff like this. It's a pretty wild situation. Like
Yeah,
you,
it looks wild, man. And this guy with the gear, that's also a protester, I'm assuming?
yeah, I don't know any of these people around me.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, as I look at the picture, you know, now that it's all said and done years later, I still don't recognize any of these people as being the people who were arrested or anything like that. I mean, I
Mm.
can't say for certain, but for the most part, this January 6th thing has kind of turned into a community of sorts. And so even people that I didn't necessarily go to the jail with, I've met at CPAC and online and stuff like that. And I don't recognize a lot of the people that I see wherever the conflict is.
Yeah. So in this moment, you're like, well, what's in your mind right now? Like, what would you say to the audience? Like, what are you thinking?
I want out of there. People are pushing and directing and yelling stuff like this, and I'm getting sprayed in the face, and I'm kind of angry. You know what I mean? And I get a little misrepresented here. I'm not angry about a stolen election at this point. I'm
Yeah.
angry that I'm being attacked.
No, which is understandable. And where are they macing you guys? Like, while y'all walk through that tunnel, are they just like on top mace?
All along the way. All along the way. I wish I had an opportunity to give you some of the good video footage I have, because like there's parts where like the police will just like randomly like turn and just mace somebody in the face and then turn back and stuff like that. I mean, it's DC,
Yeah. And it says this. It says you were given the longest. I believe. So this is the spray can they say that you found, and they say that you took.
No,
Was their defense saying that you took it there, or what was it their defense?
no, I did not take any with me, and
No, I
that
mean,
right there.
is that their defense for you?
Well, so also in trial, at one point while they're macing people, like we're getting sprayed from the back by protesters, sprayed from the front by the cop, and we're standing there, and everybody's like, "Quit spraying us, pass it forward," right? So I reach behind me like this, grab it, pass it forward, and those two people became my co-defendants. Never spoke to them, never met them or nothing. And so these two co-defendants, one of them had said a few things, like nothing really radical or crazy or something before January 6th. And the other one talked pretty crazy afterwards. So this is an exhibit from them. So one of them had brought mace. And so they saddled me with these two people I know, and we filed a severance motion. And of course, Judge Maida denied it, which is crazy, because if you know anything about the law, like two people can go rob a bank together, like that know each other and intended and planned a crime together. But if they have different defense strategies, they can file a severance motion and each get separate trials on it. And they wouldn't allow me that option. And it was, so I never said any of the crazy stuff online. As I don't have a big online presence. I'm not really, I don't know, I'm not big on the social media the way other people are. So I had never really said anything. And so they just kind of lumped them in there to make it look like all three of us felt the way that they all said, which there's nothing necessarily wrong with what they said. I mean, I think it was unwise, some of the things they said, but definitely not illegal and definitely not the intent of a crime.
Yeah, and I do want to go back to the Ted Cruz shit. I get that all the time, man. I don't know. I always say yes, 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 sir, whatever that may be. I mean, I'm almost like trying to send him a breakup letter. Like, damn, Ted, stop fucking texting me. Like, he sends me. I get a lot, especially because I'm here in Texas, so I get a lot.
Right.
Like, hey, let's beat Beto, and like during the Beto time, I got a lot. I was like, damn, bro. I mean, I support you 100%, but I don't need that many texts from you. Like, what do you want from me? Let's go. That is insane that they would use that against you, that you were like in the insurrection mode. And if that was true, then why is not Ted Cruz also being indicted? Because that was the initiation of he initiated the text, right? That makes no sense whatsoever.
Right.
And
right.
I do want to show this picture. This is one of the pictures, that famous ones of you, and I believe you are this person with the hood on. Yes.
That's me.
Okay. And during this time, how could you like take us to that moment? What's going on? What's going on in your head? I know that you've been maced a shitload of times by now. Take us through that moment.
Right. This is body cam footage from one of the Capitol Police, and so this is them after they've bottlenecked us in here, and this is them closing in on me, and I want them to keep up. I want to keep them up off of us, and they. I don't know. They're pretty tricky with the way they take these shots, because most of the time I'm just like looking around, and then they find, it's pretty good.
Yeah, no,
I,
I didn't mean it as a look at gotcha. Like, I'm just saying,
all right.
yeah, what's going on? Like, I just kind of thinking what's because anybody can relate to that moment. I mean, a moment where they felt like your back's against the wall, right? And like I said, I would be too. Like, I'm just trying to get the fuck out of here, man. Like, what are y'all, like what's going on?
Right.
Especially something like that, and you got your wife with you. I would be even more on edge if my wife was there because as a man your sole purpose is to protect your wife and kids, right? And
Right.
that would have me on complete like survival mode. Like I'm willing to do anything to get this woman that I have in my life out of this situation and in safety. So I definitely I just want to put it in context. This ain't like, hey, look at this, look at that's you,
I'd be wrong if I didn't.
yeah, and that's 100%. I can totally relate to that. In that moment, I'm sure you're like, dude, get out of our way, man. We're trying to get out of here.
Right.
Especially with that many people behind you. What would you say? How many people are behind you at this moment?
Well, you can't really see it in this photograph, but I mean, the whole crowd is back there. I mean, thousands for sure. I
Dang.
mean, it kind of goes back and around the corner, but the crowd is still pushing forward. You know what I mean? And here we are up against this wall of police who are macing us and stuff. And I guess in a situation like this, certainly everybody reacts differently. And my reaction was it made me angry. You know what I mean? I'm getting attacked. I'm getting repeatedly attacked. I haven't done anything, and I really don't believe I have no bad intent. You know what I mean? Like I feel like I'm defending myself. I'm angry about what they're doing. I want them to stop. I've never been close enough to actually tell one of them to stop. You know what I mean? So I haven't come in that kind of close contact with them, but I'm not happy with the situation. I mean, I just came from one of the happiest environments I've been in, and now all of a sudden I'm under attack, and I have no idea why, or I don't even really know who the attackers are because at this point, after I'm hearing all the leftist chants and the gas masks and the battle gear and all this stuff, I'm not really sure who's who, and we had heard rumors before. Actually, the little billy club stick I have there, right? We had heard rumors and seen a lot of videos of Antifa attacking Trump supporters when they leave rallies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
Well, those are documented. I mean, they're
yeah,
slipped in that so many times. I mean, yeah, that's how the Proud Boys came to be.
right,
And
right.
and I just learned about the 3%ers from a guy Refit. I was like, oh, I never heard of that. So interesting. And one
Yeah,
of the things I do want to put in context is they knew about Guy Reffitt. I just learned about this the other day when I interviewed Guy Reffitt, and he was saying 2 weeks before they knew he was going to go to the Capitol. So just to put in context for a lot of people, that's a lot of planning time that they could do a lot of shit. And as we know in the BLM riots, somehow magically a big crate of bricks just shows up. I don't know how. It just comes from the heavens of protesters. Like it's like
right.
what's going on? Hey, there's clubs here. It's just a club giveaway. And I could imagine that they did plant those mace bottles there for y'all to get extra charges and everything else. So they knew something was going to go down, and I'm sure they put a lot of agitators. Like you said, you heard a lot of leftist chants, which is a red flag.
Yeah, yeah. That threw me off, because I was like, of all the things I expected to hear, that was the last, and so even though they create these scenarios so they can villainize me, like because I never showed up with mace. It's really not my style, and I've never owned a can of mace in my life, But they got creative with other charges as well. So amongst my 11 charges, like some of the more ridiculous ones, obviously that obstruction of an official proceeding is ridiculous. I have they gave me 4 counts of assault and not one single victim because that picture there where you showed. They had a one from another angle, and they made it look like I was a lot closer than I was. And they zoomed in on those 2 police officers real early on in the game. And like when I first got arrested, and they interviewed them. And those officers both stated at that time, they said, we do remember this man's face. We remember seeing him, and we don't remember him committing any crimes. So that little piece of evidence never made it to trial either. They somehow lost all that footage. And then concurrently, I got an additional 10 years for disrupting interstate commerce. So even though I left it, like before 3:15, Muriel Bowser put a curfew on the city that day. And since the curfew was at 6 o'clock, which I was already back at home in Pennsylvania at that time, they said that Safeway grocery stores didn't receive a shipment that they were supposed to because they had to close early, and I disrupted interstate commerce, and I got another 10 years for that.
You personally?
That's what they're saying.
Wow.
I feel like Muriel Bowser did it.
Oh yeah. So just for people to understand, you're interrupting interstate commerce. That is. Can you explain that a little more in detail?
No, in the federal system, there really is no charges. So I mean, like, there's no rape, murder, any of these things unless they attach it to the interstate commerce clause, because the states are supposed to be sovereign. So if you commit murder someplace, you're in that state, and it's that state's responsibility to prosecute you. It's not a federal issue. So what the federal system has done to heist the power from the states is they make everything related to some type of interstate commerce. And this all goes all the way back to the original, when they designed the interstate commerce clause. They arrested some farmer that was growing his own wheat, and they told him that he was disrupting interstate commerce. And he's like, how? I don't sell it. It's just for my own personal use. And he said, well, that detracts from the market. And that's where they started that. So, I mean, it's been a crooked system for a long time. And like, they'll take, like, instead of, if somebody robs a grocery store or a gas station or something like that, in order to take that away from the states, if they just choose that the feds want to harass this person, which is generally for some type of political reason, they'll say that, well, all of the items in that store came from different states, so it's technically interstate commerce, and they call that a Hobbs Act robbery. I learned a lot about this in the feds.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, how many people got charged with that? Do you know, like, if it was a abundance of people, or was it just like very particular?
I knew that 1512 they charged. I believe it was like 350 of us or something like that.
Okay.
Which was really unusual, because neither of my two co-defendants had that charge. And
what? Yeah, that's the interstate commerce, though. Is that the one you're talking about? Because 1512, I believe, is the proceeding, right?
Yeah. Well,
okay.
The interstate commerce clause, I don't know if they use that specific clause on everybody, but they always use something that's related to it. So, like, they have it in their wording or something. And also in DC, they have a little different leeway. But I believe most people have some type of charge that's related to interstate commerce of some sort. And
because 10 years,
I mean, they have different variations of it, but
yeah, 10 years. That's no joke. I mean, that's a big charge.
Yeah.
One of the things I did want to talk about, because I saw you talk about this before, and I had no idea. So I learned this from one of your previous interviews, and I thought it was very interesting. You said that this was a photo op that you believe, at least, right? Is that correct?
Absolutely.
So can you explain that to the people, what you learned about this?
Yeah. I actually met another January 6er at CPAC, and we're comparing stories because we all have a lot of evidence of the government involvement and just the entrapment aspect of it, you know? And so, like, each one of us has had a different personal experience that we pieced together. And this guy, I won't name him because I'll let him tell his own story in that way. But he was telling me that he was up on this part right here, right where you're seeing. And he was up there waving a flag, and he said these guys, he said they were definitely not Trump supporters. They were mostly like teenagers and stuff like that. And they would climb the wall, they would get over there, they would walk back down the stairs and reclimb the same wall. And they just kept doing this over and over in a cycle. And it was all for the optics.
That's
just like
insane, like, to hear. I remember when I heard it, I was like, is that for real? Like, let me ask him.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so I have reviewed a little of the footage, and you will notice you'll see a lot of these same characters in different positions, but still going back up the walls. You kind of have to piece it together because, you know, it might be 10-minute breaks in between when you see them again and stuff, but it'll be the same characters, you know. And all of this was it's a well put together scheme for optics. Like, when you take the tunnel there where I was at, that's where all the conflict was. And so the media will show you all this conflict at the door, and then they cut to the footage where, you know, the Capitol's a large building. It's about 3 acres, just the building itself. And so all of these other doors, which there's at least 60 other doors into the Capitol, the police are waving people in and opening the doors for them. And they show the conflict there, and then they show everybody coming in all these doors, and they insinuate that everybody kicked the doors in, and that it's being stormed, and it gives a whole different illusion, because that tunnel, I don't believe that anybody actually made it through those doors. It was only the doors where people were let in at. And so they do all this stuff for optics, and I'll be honest, they did a great job of doing it, because it's very convincing. And I listened to there's an interview that Clay Higgins did on the Tucker Carlson show on January 6th, on the anniversary of 2024. And Clay Higgins is talking about how he has the footage of the actual FBI agents dressed as Trump supporters. And he makes a great point. What he says is, when you first get your job at the Capitol, and said it's a maze. The offices aren't labeled or anything. And he says it takes you about 6 months to figure out how to get to your own office. And he said there's no way anybody knew how to get to Nancy Pelosi's office or any of that. And he said he has the video footage of, there'll be like, by each door, there's like 5 or 6 federal agents dressed as Trump supporters. And when the police open the doors, they take off and they wave them this way, They're like, this is the way. And that's how people found the offices and stuff like that. None of it was homegrown.
Yeah, there's an actual video that they show a guy handcuffed, and then they take him to a little area. They unhandcuff him, give each other fist bumps, and they fucking walk, and he walks away. And it's like, okay, that's a little odd. Like, what is
right?
This? Yeah, that is pretty odd. And we all know, like, Patriot Front was the most FBI coordinated, like, wannabe Trump supporters. Cargo pants, white shirt, and they look like just straight feds. And,
right.
Yeah, it's insane. So
the 5'11" military cargo pants, right?
Yeah. So a lot's going on there, and I know I want to get into a lot of other stuff I heard. I want you to kind of go into some of the stuff I heard you talk about with the jury and your court dates and the jury and how that all processed.
That was a nightmare. I mean, obviously due process was gone from day one. I never had a bond hearing. They told me that when I got arrested in Pennsylvania.
Take me through that raid. That's my main thing, because I always want to know how the raid went down.
Oh yeah. So, I'm not dodging the FBI or anything, right? But I was getting ready to go to a different job, so I'd taken the day off. It was a Tuesday, and I'm standing outside on. I don't smoke cigarettes anymore, but I did at that time, and so I'm standing on my porch smoking a cigarette, and I see this car drive by. And the car is like taking pictures with their phone. And I'm like, boy, that's weird, right? And the car circles back around and comes by and does it again. And as soon as that car goes by, 30 of them jump out with assault rifles and the laser sights and all that. And then as soon as were yelling at me and stuff, they pull up in this armored personnel carrier with a double-handled machine gun on top of it. And they'd thrown a flashbang grenade up on top of the porch. It was it was wild. I was like, what is going on? You know what I mean? Like,
double-handed machine gun? So yeah. I would be like, what the fuck? Sorry, but damn, that would trip me.
Right. And everybody in the neighborhood, right, is like coming out and videoing this and all this. And I'm like, I don't know what is going on. You know what I mean? And they're all being aggressive and yelling at me and shoving me around and stuff like that, which comes up to a separate point, which I'll touch on now, but I'll get to later. When I got the text, right, from Ted Cruz, this was something they used as evidence. Well, after they had me handcuffed and I got the big leather belt with the cuffs through the ring and all that stuff, they're in there and they're like, well, your phone's going to a different place than you are. And it says, so if you want to get some phone numbers out of it, you're welcome to. And I have a thumbprint to get in my phone, right? So I'm like, okay, well, I appreciate that, And they hand me my phone, and I go and I put my thumb on it. And as soon as I do that, one of them shoves me, and the other one snatches the phone out of my hand, right? And I said, oh, I did not give you permission to go through my phone. You know what I mean? And they said, oh, that's all right. We'll get a warrant. And I'm like, you'll get a warrant, huh? So you don't have one? And,
so they didn't have a warrant to go raid you at all?
They didn't have a warrant for my arrest. So I got arrested on February 2nd. But they put me in a jail that's not a federal holding facility in Beaver County, Pennsylvania, which is not, they have to have contracts with the federal system. So they hid me in this jail for a couple days until they got a warrant. Then they released it to the news that I was arrested on February 4th, which is not true. as my phone was geofenced in a FBI evidence room 2 days before that, and I wasn't making any calls from it. So obviously, I was in jail, you know. And so
So just
this
to
later became an issue. So I'll just fast forward ahead a little bit. There was 24 legitimate appellate issues that I had for the problems with the due process violations during my trial. And because there were so many, we had to narrow it. You're only allowed so many pages and so many lines and stuff like that to argue your points. So we just narrowed it down to 4 that we felt were guaranteed winners. And this phone issue was one of them because of the way they illegally confiscated it. So I did end up getting my case reversed and remanded in the appellate court 3 days before the pardon. But the appellate court kicked it down to the district court with instructions that they're reversing my conviction. So my conviction is completely reversed, but they remanded it down to the lower court for them to decide which, if any, of the charges they would pursue afterwards, because it was a faulty trial process, which would throw away everything. But I wasn't aware of this, so 3 days later, I got the pardon. But they dragged this appellate process out intentionally. They scheduled my oral arguments on the appeals for exactly 1 week to the day after the 2024 election, because they were afraid what would happen if people found out that all these convictions weren't what people believed they were. So they're out there, you know, for 4 years, about once an hour, every hour, they put it all over to the news that, you know, dangerous, violent man has been convicted on all this. Well, the last thing they want is to find out that, oh, well, turns out these charges aren't true. You know what I mean? So they intentionally delayed that.
And they did that also with the chair throwing, right? They said that you threw a chair and injured somebody. Is that correct?
Right. Yep. That was overturned as well.
They thought you were going all WWE on them or what?
Yeah.
Sorry, I mean, I'm just an idiot. But yeah, that's so. You said later in the courts that they said the officer said that he never got hit by a chair or nothing. So that was totally fake, right?
Right. And they got creative because, you know, as you know, like in any of these situations, you have people who are desperate to preserve themselves, and so if they get a tidbit, they fantasize it. So there's some bad snitches out there that are making stuff up. You know what I mean? And like even some of that stuff that didn't make it to the courtroom, the news is still running with.
Oh, we see that all the time. I was earlier. I was just gonna think like, man, because this happened January 6th, so you had about at least a good 3.5 weeks, right, of just kind of in limbo, like, okay, everything's fine, and then just out of nowhere, you just see dudes taking pictures of you like you're a celebrity, and then they're rating with
Yeah.
machine. Yeah, that's oh man. And what is in your mind? Did you know this is because January 6th, or are you still kind of just total confusion at that time?
Yeah, I didn't realize how big of a deal it really was. You know, I mean, I knew that they were politicized and everything, and you know, I thought they wanted to scare the public. But what I really figured is they were going to make all these arrests and then just let it fade from the news and let us out. You know what I mean? I really didn't think that they were going to platform off of this for an entire 4 years. And if Trump wouldn't have got elected this time, they would have been still using it to platform themselves off of. I mean, that was it. It's the message isn't to me. They know that I know what really happened. You know what I mean? They're not scolding me and correcting my behavior at 51 years old. You know what I mean? They're not trying to change me. The message is to you and everybody else and everybody in this audience. The message is, if you have an opinion, if you stand up for yourself, you know what I mean? It's like all throughout this process, I had the lawyers I ended up going to trial with and that did my appeals. They were excellent lawyers, but I went through a lot of bad ones before that, you know, and because this whole thing attracted all kinds of sharks and predators, and they're telling me, well, what you need to do is you just need to go down to this courtroom with us and just tell them, you know, that you're sorry and Trump made you do it. And I'm like, made me do what? You know, I mean, but, and I, even if I had done something, I'm my own man. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do something because Trump told me to do it, you know, so I'm responsible for my own actions regardless. So I'm not going to go down there to help their political activism and just try to throw Trump under the bus, because that's really all this is about, is trying to keep Trump from getting reelected, just to villainize him and weaponize the law against him. And that's exactly all it's ever going to be, you know?
That's but that does show like I know Tim told me the same thing. Tim Hale, he's like talking about like I wasn't gonna blame nobody, I blame myself. Like it just shows the character of a lot of people that got arrested. Because man, I would suspect I mean a big portion of the public if they were in that same situation, they would roll over quick. Like, what do you want me to say, bro? It's like, 'cause
Right.
I really and this is me personally. With if they were gonna put my kids and my wife and all that, it would be hard for me to like say like I need to stick to my my core values and all that because a lot of times like people don't understand that you just want to get out of that situation and what do I need to do to get out. So
Absolutely.
that just shows you have strong convictions in what you believe in and what you're doing. So I just want to say like yeah, that's fucking hardcore, bro. That's hardcore, and I respect it. I do respect it.
I'm not taking a plea or anything. I took it all the way to trial, you know?
Would you say there were like liberal lawyers? Where it is DC, right? I mean, it's a liberal shit.
Yeah. I mean, even a conservative is to the left of Stalin, you know? In DC.
Yeah, they still have little Mao pictures in the restaurant.
Right. Yeah, they were pretty bad. Even the lawyers I ended up choosing, right? They're, I wouldn't say they're conservative, but they're interested in doing their job. You know what I mean? So they did an excellent job of, they didn't care what my political beliefs were. I didn't care what their political beliefs were. They just were going to do the best job in trial as possible. And I thought that was a wise choice. A lot of the other January 6ers chose kind of political activist lawyers, which I like the way they think, but in trial, I want the best lawyer I can get, regardless of how they feel. And my lawyers did do a good job of that, so I was pretty happy with them.
It's DC, brother. I would have got like a pansexual, trans, Native American identifier, all the checks, like give me one of those. I'll be like,
well, they put those on my jury.
Okay. I'll just say just check those identity things, and that's all you got to say in my defense, and maybe you'll get a lenient sentence. So I did hear a story about one of the jurors that was going kind of making accusations on you, trying to get you more charges, and I heard you say like a lot of leftists were trying to get on the jury. Is that correct? Like they were like scrabbling onto.
Yeah, I was shocked by it because in my entire life, everybody I know that's called for jury duty is always trying to figure out how they can get off the jury. Like people don't want to do it,
I think I'm the only one that enjoyed my jury duty because I got like I'm not gonna lie. I told my friends because I got like a really high profile case, and I was like, I felt like a fucking journalist. I'm there with my little pad, and I was like, this is cool, man. But yeah, jury duty is boring as hell. So yeah. Sorry about that.
A lot of people don't want to miss the work or whatever. You know what I mean? Because I think I don't know what they compensate you for, but
yeah, they don't compensate.
The whole jury situation was crazy. Like on the first day of my trial, and my lawyers are very good. They gave me they coached me on courtroom demeanor, and like just for an example, like some of the good advice they gave me is I wore just like a regular button down the front shirt and stuff, and they're like, because if you're not used to wearing a suit, you know what I mean, and you come in there dressed in a suit and you're uncomfortable in it and you're tugging at your collar, the jury's going to misread that as you being nervous about being guilty. And so, right. So like they'd given me good instructions on how to go about, my courtroom presence and stuff. And basically I just kept my head down and took notes and stuff. But at the end of the first day, this woman, clearly a liberal by the look of her, she oh yeah, all that, right.
Overweight, yeah.
Enormous, and right. She messages I forget what you call him, the guy that's in charge of the jury. I think it's the bailiff or whatever.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
They messaged him and said that the bald guy's giving her the death stare, right? And
that's crazy. So
the judge brings this up, and like everybody's like, "Well, I don't know what you're talking about," you know what I mean? And he's like, "Well, let's find out." He said, "Because this is dangerous talk, you know what I mean? And if she's been talking this way to the rest of the jury, then the whole jury pool's tainted, you know what I mean?" And like those were the words out of his mouth, as if she's been saying this. So he calls them all in one by one and says, "Did you hear this? Her talking about the death stare, and did you see the death stare?" Every one of them. Oh yeah, I saw the death stare. It's intimidating. We're scared now. You know what I mean? And like, just so dramatic, right? So he gets to the end of these people, and he's like, "Well, I forgot to ask him specifically who was giving him the death stare, right?" Now she had said the bald guy, and I'm the only bald guy in the room. So he starts calling them in, and they're all saying different names. They're like, "Oh yes, it was definitely Marcus Malley, the guy with the long hair and the blue suit over there. It was definitely him doing the death stare." And the judge is like, "Well, wait a second, clearly everybody's heard it now, and clearly it's not Mr. Schwartz doing this." You know what I mean? So he's like, "Well, I'm just going to." He backs up on it. Now he says the jury pool's not tainted. Now he says he'll just tell them that courtroom demeanor is not part of the evidence and ignore that.
That's meta, right? Judge
Yeah, absolutely.
God, what a scumbag.
The
That
evil
is,
and crooked meta.
yeah, there's a like they say, man. There's ignorance and there's malice, and definitely this man's not ignorant. He knows what he's doing.
He definitely does.
Yeah, that's the death stare. So you were just spewing white privilege. That's probably what it was, Pete.
Right. All over the place, right?
I know. God damn it, you're glowing in there. God damn it.
You could tell by my handcuffs that it was
Like, what were you giving her, crazy eyes, or what? Like, you giving her the AOC look?
right.
It's like the leftists are the ones that have the crazy eyes, man. They're like, oh,
Absolutely.
oh,
So then day two rolls around, and this time, like it's unnerving because everybody in the courtroom is like watching me all day, and again, no death stare, right? But at the end of day two, she does it again. She sends another message to the bailiff, and she's like, "You guys, you got to give him more charges and this and that. He's intimidating me. It's the death stare, you know what I mean?" And this time they've been watching me. Like, even the judge has to admit that this never happened, you know what I mean? So they dismiss her as a juror. And yeah, there's all kinds of antics with this jury. So day three is another antic with the juror. We have one that, one of my co-defendants' lawyers was absolutely horrible. Probably he would have been better off without a lawyer. But this guy gets up there, knowing that this jury hates January 6th. Like, we fought in pretrial motions, excluded 44 witnesses they were going to use against me that don't know me, never seen me, just wanted to say that January 6th is a scary day, because clearly this is the angle of their prosecution, right? So this lady, all of them are, well, they're liberals, super. These are garbage people, and so he keeps showing like hours of the footage of January 6th, right? And like at some point they keep interrupting him and like, "Well, what's the point of this footage? Because none of the defendants are in this," you know what I mean? And this guy's like, "Oh, well, I'm just trying to show what my client's not doing," right? And the judge, is basically like, "Well, you can show a video of the convenience store down the road right now to show what your client's not doing. That's not how these cases work,
That's a terrible way to go.
Right. So he's just like, "Okay, well, just a little bit more I have to show." And he's like, "We'll get to the point." So he shows it, and he shows the part where up in the tunnel where they're pushing on each other, and a cop gets caught in the doorway, and he makes this little squeaky noise, right? So one of the jurors jumps up out of the jury box and takes off out of the courtroom at a dead run. And the judge is like, "Well, I guess we're going to take a break now, right?" So we take a little 15-minute recess, and at the end of it, she sends a message that she needs 25 more minutes to recover from this footage. It's so traumatic. So what do you think Marcus Malley's lawyer does again? He starts playing more footage, as if that didn't freak her out. You know what I mean? Oh,
what is this? Yeah, but even that alone, I mean, when you're served on a jury, right? I mean, you are seeing the worst of the worst. I know I saw, like I said, when I did mine, and the reason I only had one jury duty ever in my entire life, and that was the one. And when I saw mine, we're seeing shit like, oh shit, like you're seeing really dramatic.
yeah.
And I mean, most of these are doing murders, rapes, molestations, all kinds of stuff. That's jury duty. It's the worst of the worst. And like, where it depends which one you get. But yeah, man, for her to run out because of some you see like some people going at it. I get that's wrong, because a lot of us that were out here, yeah, we saw like, damn, the people that were doing all that. Because our first initial response was, all right, these motherfuckers breaking windows, doing stuff, like, come on, you're making us look bad. And then we
Yeah.
didn't get the backstory of, okay, they're pepper spraying people, they're doing all kinds of stuff. These people have nowhere to go. It's survival mode, and we kind of get the backstory later. And it took years, took years.
Yeah.
Tucker Carlson to get some of the footage when that happened on Fox, and I believe that's part of the reason he got fired. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
and it was, oh wow, there's a whole different backstory. So that's why we took it upon ourselves. Like, I want to hear y'all stories, and and the more I start to hear different aspects, it all makes sense. Like, it's all like a puzzle. And like you said, you're talking to a lot of people, and it's getting like where you're getting different information and stuff, and that's pretty crazy. And just I would have dismissed that juror if I was a judge. Like, dude, you obviously can't be a jury. You need to grow up.
Right.
Like, fuck.
Yeah, but he kept her.
Of course, because that makes
Yeah.
sense. Um, Now, I know you were in the maximum security, and I want to ask, because I don't know this question. I know the answer. Is did you have priors before this, or did you have a clean record? And why did you go to maximum security?
Well, I have a mild record, but it's mostly driving offenses. Is the majority of it,
Oh, okay.
And so like when you hear the news slandering to me, and they're like, he's been arrested this many times. Well, if it was anything real, believe me, they would be telling you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But no insurance, DUI, stuff like that. They're acting like those are homicides or something, the way they portray it. But it's so anyhow, even with that, it's all so far in the past, because like they're talking about stuff. I'm 51. I'll be 52 this summer. They're talking about a lot of stuff from like 1993, 94. You know what I mean? When I was a teen and young 20s and stuff like that, and they're trying to portray it like I'm just roaming the streets, still driving crazy or whatever. I mean, it's
Those Fast and the Furious movies, bro. They fucked there.
they weren't even out then.
I know. Yeah, I'm out thinking about it. Yeah, I'm way off.
Right.
Yeah.
But so even we had a point sheet in the DC jail, because like there's a specific guideline set, right? And so we figured up my points, because we were all trying to figure, we're going to prison, like try to figure out where we're going to go, you know what I mean? And my points calculated that I was right on the border between a camp and a low security. But so I had 4 outstanding speeding tickets, right? And they'll take like something like this, and they said that these speeding tickets, and I've been in jail, so I can't take care of them, and I'm literally speeding tickets. They counted those as low-level escapes, because they said that I didn't attend the court dates and stuff like that. So they got real creative with the point system, and like there's a guy in there. I'm not. I guess I won't say his name, but he's with the Gambino family. He has 30 murders. He says he's only guilty of 28 of them, right? Well, they didn't give.
Sorry, that's just a good one. I'm only these motherfucking liars. I'm only guilty of 28 of these murders.
Right. This guy does not have 7 points on his thing for most dangerous crime, but they give me an extra 7 points for the most dangerous category. I'm like, it's just a fabricated system, and I knew what they were doing, because I had spoken out a lot. You know what I mean? Because once this started happening, that doesn't make me want to knuckle under more. That really makes me more angry, and I want to speak out and let people know what they're doing to me. So I did a lot of interviews, and I told the truth is all I really did. So they put me in these maximum securities, and I never saw another January 6er after I left the DC jail. They kept me isolated. They wouldn't let me get mail. They were constantly making up a reason to take my phone from me. Like, they pretty much kept me cut off from communication. The one time I did have my phone for a week, I did an interview on the Gateway Pundit. Immediately for doing that interview, they threw me in the hole for I think it was like 3.5, 4 months. And then I was at USP Canaan, which is northern Pennsylvania on the border of New York, and which is pretty far from my home. And the only farther place they could get me from my home was USP Atwater out in California. So after I did the Gateway Pundit interview, I did 3.5 months in the hole, and they shipped me out to USP Atwater, which is another crazy, violent, dangerous prison. Like all the USPs are.
So, it's crazy how evil people can be, man. Like, that's crazy. Like, to go out of your way to make somebody's life a living hell, even though for what reason? And what do you? I just want to say, how do those people sleep at night, bro? Like those people are pure fucking evil, and I hope there's a place for them waiting. Because to do that to somebody, a human being, for something like you said, it's not like if you were out there molesting kids or murdering like innocent, I could see that. Like, yeah, you're a piece of shit. But
Right.
something so minor than I was in a rally. I got in survival mode. Okay, if you want to punish me, I get it, but not to like you're getting treated worse than a murder. A 28,
Yeah.
like that's insane to me. And man, people need to. There needs to be indictments, man. I'm kind of losing faith in Pam Bondi, but I know Cash Patel is the real deal, so I'm hoping there's some indictments coming down the pike
I'm
because that's gulag shit. That's straight
right.
like, third world banana court. Like
I'm so frustrated with the lack of action on this administration right now because
me
by
too.
this time, by this date for us in January 2021 and February and even by the time March hit, they had arrested nearly 1,000 of us, and there's not been one arrest of them. And we have the receipts, we have the proof, we have the video. I mean, we have the evidence that it was entrapment. Clay Higgins has it. All these people have it, and I just don't understand why Pam Bondi is just idly sitting by. Not one single arrest.
I totally agree, man. It's frustrating. I was backing her up for a minute, and now I'm at the point like I don't know what to say about this woman. It seems like she's more into doing Fox News interviews than doing her job. And like,
Right.
look at Cash Patel. How many interviews has this man done? The only time I seen him is at a UFC fight this last weekend, which was pretty cool. It was him and Mel Gibson. I was like, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Other than that, it's like the man's doing his job. I have faith in him. I haven't lost faith in him.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to see indictments going down, bro. Now, like you said, you were just to backtrack a little bit. You were in the DC Gulag in the beginning, and how would you say your treatment was there? I know y'all were in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day. Um,
Right.
how did that go down? What were some of the most egregious things that happened to you guys?
Well, the main thing was when we first got there, it was pretty bad. You know, what I mean, just the COVID restrictions. That's what the 23-1 started with. But all these officers that worked there thought that we were these racist terrorists and stuff like that, right? And so at first they were terrible to us, but as time went on, you know what I mean, and they started realizing that not only are we not what they thought we were, but we're the best behaved people in that entire jail. You know what I mean? So it did gradually improve as the time went on, but I mean, I was there for 2 years and 3 months. I mean, you would expect by that point, they can finally realize that at least me and the rest of us aren't who they're saying we are, So it started off pretty bad, but the warden Landerkin, as she's a black lesbian liberal, so that's how you get promoted to warden there. I mean, it's DEI hires, and
Yeah.
she had posted on her Twitter, and Marjorie Taylor Greene even brought attention to this, that she had posted on her Twitter after January 6th that if any of these Trump supporters show up in my jail, I'm going to torture them. And so they would send in teams. And I mean, there was like periods of severe harassment and stuff. And like even once the COVID lifted, everybody else was allowed visits. They were allowed haircuts, nail clippers, just like basic hygiene stuff. And we still were not. Like they still kept us on some different program and stuff and kept us isolated. And it's it was a bad place to be, no doubt, and also, I mean, just being in jail period is terrible. I mean,
Yeah.
even if it's in jail for something you deserve to be, being in jail is a terrible experience, and then on top of it, you have like all of us in the January 6th pod are not patriots, because you still have the entrappers and the entrapped, and so we're locked up amongst them. Like at one point, one guy had admitted that him and his co-defendant had got caught in a drug conspiracy, and they were going to do 15 flat years. And the government came to them and said, well, if you go and do these things and push this insurrection narrative, you're going to do a few years, but the rest of the stuff goes away. So you have those type of people in there too. Then you have people who got entrapped like myself, who were just scared. And I mean, people are losing their families, they're losing their homes, they're losing their jobs, and like we're all losing all this stuff all at one time. So I mean, even the people who you maybe would get along with in a normal situation are now under high stress. You know what I mean? So it's a very volatile environment, you know, at all times, because nobody wants to be there, of course, you know.
Yeah, I ask this question all the time. Like, what got you through there? Did you ever have like moments of like, I'm losing it? Um, I can't imagine being somewhere 23 hours in a little box. Like, I'm in my garage right now, doing this podcast. It's pretty big. And I can't imagine being in this garage 23 hours a day, every day. I think I would lose my shit, to be completely honest. Um,
Right.
did you feel that way? Did you ever feel like I know Jessica Watkins told me one time, she was like, I started hearing music and I realized, oh shit. And it was a really good story she told us. It's like, yeah, dude, because finally, because everybody I've talked to is just like, oh, I just dealt with it. And I'm like, damn, okay, y'all are better than me, I guess. Did you ever have those moments, and what got you through?
Well, you know, I'm a Christian, and I went to church and lived as a Christian before this, but I'd say it strengthened my faith because I needed to, because I had nothing else to rely on, for one thing. But I mean, in the course of a day, like, the time is so slow when you're locked up in your cell by yourself, you know, with nothing to do. So like, just between lunch and dinner feels like a week, you know. So in the course of that time, you know, it may only be 4 hours or whatever, but I hit every emotion on the range of emotions. You know what I mean? Like, I go from sad to angry to lonely to just depressed. I mean, and then happy because I don't know what else to be. I mean, just every emotion that there is just a constant cycle, and it's just way more intense than it is in real life, you know? Because I mean, you have nothing, there's no distractions, there's nothing to pull you away from what's going on inside of your head. I mean, it's just you and like these thoughts. And like, it was particularly bad for me when I went a year and a half before I got my discovery material, and they had said, this is what you're charged with. And then they changed it. So I really didn't know what I was even being charged with for the first year and a half. So I'm like,
Pure evil, bro. Pure evil.
yeah. And at this point, like, you do lose, you lose touch with reality. Whether, you know, I mean, I guess when you come out, like, it's different, you know what I mean? Like, your mind snaps back and stuff. But at those points, like, I'm like, well, everything they're saying is a lie. How do I know they're not going to charge me with like 20 murders that I didn't do? You know what I mean? Because if everything else is a lie, why wouldn't they take the lie that far? I don't, you know. And I get to the point, you're locked up for so long that, like, when I do talk to people and stuff, I tell stories about, you know, reminisce about my former life before prison and stuff. And I'm so disassociated from my real life in there that I almost started to feel like my memories weren't even real. Like, it was just something I dreamed or something I saw on a television show, because it's just such an extreme disconnect from reality in there. And that's hard.
That's
I,
deep, bro. That's real deep. That's yeah, I can imagine, man. Like, you start to even question things you know that are real.
yeah,
Yeah, that's real deep. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Um,
absolutely.
did anyone hurt themselves in there when you were in there? Like during that solitary confinement stages of your time?
I didn't see anybody. I mean, people would definitely go crazy though. I mean, they were yelling and screaming and kicking the doors and stuff and just trying to vent whatever's going on in their head, you know. I didn't physically myself see anybody harm themselves, but I know people were close to it, you know.
Yeah. So you were just in communications with the people through the walls or through the vents. Is that correct?
For the most part, they gradually eased it up to where, you know, then it went to 2 hours per day, and then I think like 4 hours per day, and then by the time I left there, it ended up being where you're out all day, and then
Oh.
you're just locked down at nighttime. So
And what did
it
you
was
do
good
in the
and bad.
cell during that whole time? Were you reading? Were you doing push-ups? I mean, were you working out? Like, what was the daily routine for you?
Well, mostly a lot of reading, and
Okay.
like when I first got locked up, I mean, I was just so depressed. I just didn't have any energy to work out, you know. But once I did finally force myself to start working out, I mean, that was a that was a big improvement in my mental state, you know. Like, that
Yeah.
really helped a lot. So I continued that through the rest of my time, and until Trump got elected, and then I stopped working out again. I'm like, I'm gone.
I'm going back to lazy route.
Right.
You're all top heavy. You're just walking around
Right.
looking like a cholo and stuff. Um, that's awesome. So you did have some reading materials. That's good. So would you say it was more? It wasn't more physical abuse. It was more mental abuse. Is that
Definitely more mental.
gotcha?
It's definitely more mental. And you know, in that situation, like I didn't personally experience this, but a lot of people would lash out at the guards and invite some stuff to themselves too as well. Which, don't get me wrong, I understand they're lashing out, and I'm not saying they're wrong because these guards can be provoking and stuff like that, but they're control freaks, you know what I mean? And you just have to accept that they're in charge. And I mean, even though they're wrong, I could, I make my smart comments. I call them foot soldiers of the communist regime and all that too, but I try to keep it where it's not going to turn into a physical conflict, because I have no win coming there, they're going to call 20 more of them. And
I've been in the locked up situation. Luckily, it's just been county for multiple things since juvenile when I would be locked up in juvie. And I remember one of my times in there. We're in the holding center, and the holding center takes about 24 hours. Now it's even more. And there was this one guy, and you could tell he was a rich prick, man. Like just this rich guy that's never been told what to do ever in his life, and he's just like losing it. Like, you need to get me the fuck out of here, and just like going crazy, right? And finally, man, like the guards ended up saying, one more time, I'm gonna hold that whole cell responsible. And there's like 60 of us in that cell, It's a bunch.
yeah,
It's a big holding cell. And finally, this big dude, like I'm talking, dude, you don't want to fuck with, this Andre the Giant looking motherfucker. And he's all like, if you touch that button again, I'm gonna break your goddamn finger. And it was like he kind of like learned, oh shit, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and stop. I can totally agree how some people can definitely kind of ruin it for the rest of them, because it is a collective in there. Whatever
yeah,
one
for
does,
sure.
the rest are gonna deal with the consequences. Kind of like the military.
Sure. And it's all walks of life too,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I'm a blue collar welder, you know what I mean? Like middle class and stuff. And there's low class people in there. There's high class people in there. I mean, it's just such a combination of people that you wouldn't expect to see together in any other situation as well, which, you know,
which makes interesting conversations.
yeah,
To say the least.
that throws gas on the fire.
So I'm interested in how was it like? What would you say are some crazy things that happened during your time in the maximum security? Was it constant? That was that more physical, or was that just the people involved? Sorry, let me read
Uh,
that. How was what would you say is the most craziest stuff that you saw in the maximum security prison?
well, I can't narrow it down to one because it happens every single day. Like they have a rule, so there's a whole system to it, but it's extremely violent. So there's usually 3 stabbings every day,
God,
and like, yeah, they're extremely dangerous. And like, I saw so much of this stuff, and I mean just gore that I don't even want to go into. I mean brutal gore. I mean it's unbelievable how evil people can be. But like, I'm sitting in the
you
chow
saw
hall
that,
one
right?
day, huh?
You saw that firsthand, like,
Oh
oh
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, like it happens 3 times a day, but it may not always be in front of me.
yeah.
But like I've seen so much of it over the course of the years, that I realized I had a epiphany, and I realized how desensitized I'd come to it when I'm sitting at the chow hall and somebody right next to me, like 3 feet away from me, is getting their eyeball stabbed out,
Oh
and I
my.
don't even stop eating. I'm
You're just minding your own business, just like.
yeah, I'm like I don't know. Your brain goes into, like, you see so much of it, that your brain goes into some type of self-preservation mode where you just become desensitized to it. And I just couldn't believe that I had become that way, that my mind could shut that off, because it's horrible, the stuff that you see. I mean,
Yeah, institutionalized,
absolutely
man.
horrible.
That's when you come institutionalized, uh,
Yeah,
for sure. So you saw, like, damn, this right next to you, just like some shit like that, and that was daily occurrence.
all the time. Yeah, like even right before we got pardoned, it was the Thursday before. Of course, we got out on a Monday, right? But the Thursday before, they violated the 3 stabbing per day rule, And like,
We're gonna clean this up. We're gonna make it to one stabbing.
right. So like,
Very
I'm walking around the rec yard, and like normally they do this like 10 minutes before rec ends. You know what I mean? So because then the other people will all get mad if they took their rec time away from them. So then they're going to be in danger. The stabbers will be in danger of getting stabbed. It's violent, right? And so like I'm walking along minding my own business, and I almost walked into the middle of this, right? And like they even scooped me up when they came, and all the COs come running in, they fire off all the guns and stuff like that. They scooped me right up with them, and then they ran the cameras back and saw that I had no idea what was going on. And so after that incident, 3 more stabbings happened. So we were on lockdown when I got out. So it was probably going to be about a week lockdown, but it's just that it's rough. It's rough in there.
Are you like one of the few or the only one that from the J6 situation that got maximum security that you know of, or because I haven't interviewed anybody that went through that other than you. You're my first.
I heard that there was a couple others, but I haven't heard that from them. So sometimes I think I am the only one, because sometimes when I hear other people relay the story, like unless you're in that, like before this, I didn't know the difference between like a penitentiary versus a FCI or anything like that. Like I thought it was just, how people have different terms. They're like, hey, I'm going to the pokey, or I'm going to the big house, or, the penitentiary. I just thought it was just a different terminology. I didn't realize that it was a very specific meaning that meant penitentiary. So I think sometimes when I hear other people say that, oh, so-and-so went to the penitentiary as well, they probably don't know what it means in specific legal terms, penitentiary, So I think I'm the only one.
Okay, yeah, there's a big difference between county, pen, and
yeah, but I mean, I really didn't know the difference myself until I've lived through it. Like I just thought I would have called it the big house.
So that's crazy. And did you have to join anybody during that time for safety, or you just kind of kept to yourself, or how did that go?
No, people group up for their own protection, right?
Yeah, for
so
sure.
I'm independent because I'm not affiliated. I have no interest in gangs or anything like that. But the independent people still look out for each other, because if you're white in the penitentiary and not affiliated with a gang, you're automatically going to be a target unless you band together with a bunch of other people in the same situation, and just kind of watch each other's backs for the most part, because it's dangerous. I mean,
yeah, and anybody that knows anything about the prison system, you got to go with your race. Like that, there's not like hey, I got to make a choice. It's you're this color, you're with these people.
Yeah, you have no choice.
Yeah, you have no choice in the matter. I know it's like that. I have a lot of friends that went to the pen, and yeah, there's this certain gangs, Mexican gangs that you join here, and they have a distinct like tattoo or something that oh, he did time.
Right.
So yeah. Now, what would you say all of this shit has done to you? Do you have trouble sleeping? Would you say you're in like you have PTSD? Like stress levels? How's your health and everything like that?
My health is good, but I feel like I am adapting pretty well, but I still see like maybe I'm not seeing myself clearly, because I still see the way I react in situations is sometimes different. I'm less trusting of people. I always take a hard line on things when I don't need to, and I don't like that about myself, because that wasn't how I was before this. I don't know. I mean, there are some changes, and I'm putting a lot of conscious work into reversing all that, and trying to just be able to let go, and maybe just trust people for no reason sometimes, which may not be good, but there are things about me that changed, and I'm doing pretty good. I mean, like, I'm not like snapping at anybody or anything like that, but I just see certain distinct traits in myself that weren't there before this, but I am making a conscious effort to undo all this, because I would like to go back to being happy and carefree again, and I'm not quite there, but I'm getting there.
Oh yeah. I mean, that would take a toll on anybody, man. There's a lot of people I've talked to, and I'm like, how did that do with your health? Because I mean, just the stress levels of all that. Because you're not looking at like, you do a crime as a normal citizen. You're looking at some time, but there's a lot of things you can do. But in y'all's case, it almost seems like they're out to like heads need to roll. They're making an example out of you guys. So,
Right.
like you said, that whole year, you don't know what the fuck's going on. Like, I don't know what I'm charged with. I don't know what's going on. I could imagine the health issues that would bring.
I still had 10 years left at the point that I got out. I mean, I did 4 years, which was felt like 40, and I'm 51, so that would put me out at 61, 62 years old. I mean, I just it's hard to comprehend. I can hardly wrap my head around it still.
How much time did you do at the maximum security?
It was close to 2 years. I did
Damn.
15. Yeah, I was 15 months in Canaan and then 5 months in Atwater.
So they
So
they gave you the diesel therapy as well, right?
yeah, that was initially when I first got arrested. They did that.
Oh, okay.
So I went to a bunch of different jails. I've been to a lot now, jails, prisons. So I started off. They hid me in that jail in Beaver County. Then once they got the arrest warrant, they moved me to Butler County. I was there for a short period of time, like 3 weeks or something. Then they moved me to Grady County, which is in Oklahoma City. I was there for about a week. And then they moved me to Northern Neck, Virginia, where I was there for like another week and a half.
Jeez.
Then they moved me to the DC jail. Then from the DC jail, I went to Lewisburg for a few days. And then from Lewisburg, I went to USP Canaan. From USP Canaan, I went to Oklahoma City for a couple days. Then I went to USP Victorville for 3 weeks, then to USP Atwater for 5 months. So,
And just for the people, maybe people don't understand the reason they do this, and correct me if I'm wrong, is so you never get your feet planted, right? Like you never get to get your materials or your case kind of looked through.
right,
It's kind of like, oh, hey, here's some paperwork for your case, and like, oh, you're moving by the way, and then they take everything. Is that correct?
everything. So, like I had a lot of evidence of the abuses that they've done and stuff like that. Like even in the DC jail, some officer like that didn't normally work there just showed up one day, and he ended up attacking me for no reason with mace. And so they tried to charge me for being aggressive, and they ended up running the cameras, and they found out that I had done nothing. I was standing behind a door when he did this, when he came after me, and there was no argument, no conflict. And they wrote the paperwork up and said there was nothing against me and that this officer was dead in the wrong, right? I'm like, oh, this is awesome. You know what I mean? That was the paperwork. But of course, they take the paperwork from me, and now I can't find it. Now they're saying through the Freedom of Information Act, it'll take me over a year to secure this paperwork. So it's the same story over and over. I mean, like they take all my mail. I lose all my contacts every time they move me. Like the few people I am able to get letters to, now I don't know their addresses. I have no way to contact them. I mean, it's a
Yeah, it's a shit show.
it's a torture in its own way.
Yeah, for anybody that's never been locked up, just being in that situation, like being away from everything, like reality. I've been through that, not to the extent you have. It is nerve wracking because it's like, dude, I don't know what's going on in the outside world. I can't get in contact with nobody. Your your liberties are taken away, which understandably so. I get it. You did something wrong. I get that, but it's just the whole mindset and the psychological shit it does to you. It
Right.
weighs on you, man. It weighs on you for sure. I do want to say, did you ever get into physical altercations during maximum security, or you kind of like were like away from all that?
Oh yeah. I mean, you can't escape it. You know what I mean? Like as soon as you show up, they want to see what you're about. So. Well, there's no way around it.
Yeah. So it was got into a fight club, huh?
Yeah. I mean, you're gonna be in the problems whether you defend yourself or not. I
Yeah.
mean,
And they didn't try to add extra charges because of that?
no, it's totally acceptable in there.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, like this is a point I wanted to make about the prison system is that there's cameras all over the prison system, right?
Yeah.
And so every single day, multiple times per day, and there's only 7 active penitentiaries like that in the United States right now. There's a bunch of penitentiaries for like dropout yards and stuff, but the active crazy ones like that, there's only 7 left. And every day, all these penitentiaries, multiple people will attack, beat, and stab somebody on camera, and there's no charges pressed against them ever. So as long as the person doesn't die, they usually get like a write-up for injury with no assault. And I mean, even if these people are maimed, like they do the famous buck 50 where they get 150 stitches on their face, and
I never even heard of that.
oh yeah, it's a thing in there. And so like that's one of the ways they want to mark somebody that they don't like and whatever. But every single day this happens on camera, so that it's encouraged, because if this were to happen out in the outside world, if two people were at a gas station and just randomly jumped on somebody that walked out of the gas station and beat them right with the police standing right in front of them, they're going to jail. They're going to be prosecuted. But once you hit the prison system, it's an encouraged thing, as a matter of fact.
I did not know that there were 7 prisons that do that. That's news to me. So that's really educational for me. I need to do some more research on that. So you're saying there's 7 actually, and if they have you on camera, they're just not going to charge you for those.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And is there a reason for that? Did you learn that? Why that's the thing, or?
I don't know, but I know that they encourage it. So like,
yeah,
Canaan, which is very violent. Like I think it's every Thursday, they have busloads of people come in, and like they have all these people that like maybe they were snitches or pedophiles or something like that, right? And they send them to these prisons, and within 24 hours, these people are all automatically stabbed up because they have bad paperwork or they were child molesters or something. But when they go into the yards, of course, they don't necessarily have their paperwork with them. The guards will tell the people, they tell everybody, well, this person is in here for this, you know what I mean? And this person's in here for that. So, I mean.
Well, yeah, I've seen them do that in county too, so that's not new to me.
Yeah.
The whole, like, they don't charge you for nothing is pretty, damn, that's pretty hardcore. I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
And just for the people to know, you were only in there because of traffic violations. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, well, really no reason, because I really shouldn't have. They just figured my points wrong. You know what I mean? Because even that stuff, that stuff was old enough that it should have been off the record. And then the extra 7 points they're saying for most dangerous, it's all fabricated,
And so you got royally screwed. Because not only did you deal with the mental, then you're dealing with the physical now. So you got just double-edged sword. I'm surprised you are as chill as you are right now, man. I would think, because I mean that would make a hardened criminal out of anybody. Even I would think that you go to a life of crime, because I mean, just the anger inside. So I really want to say, like, damn, you're strong. You're a strong person to go through that and kind of have that mindset that you have right now. I would.
Thank you.
I would love for you to get a J6 tour shirt, like a band tour of all the prisons you have to go through, just because that'd be pretty
good.
Cool. I know, yeah, you should. Somebody needs to feed a shirt and all the prisons and jails you went to.
To extend on your point about me having a calm demeanor, that's actually one of the things that I feel like I don't like about myself that I developed in prison, because it's such a hostile environment all the time that like one wrong tone inflection could end up getting you stabbed. So basically, like, everybody in there adapts this like monotone demeanor and stuff like that, and it's kind of taken away a little bit of my personality, to be honest, and I don't like that.
Prison politics.
Yeah.
I do want to, before we go, I do want to say, like, what are some of the things, because I've heard you say you had your wife back then that did it. I believe you're not with your wife anymore, right?
Right. We'd
get...
only recently been married, and
oh, gotcha.
It was whatever. I mean, I don't agree with the choices she made, but I've never been in her situation, so I'm just gonna let it go at that. You know what I mean? Was
she charged as well, or no?
Yeah, she was sentenced to 2 years, and she also went. I think she went to a penitentiary. I don't know if they have female penitentiaries, but she went to Hazleton. I know that's a men's penitentiary, but I don't know what security level the female side of it is.
Okay, so she actually did time as well.
Right.
And did how did what did like I'm just curious, like, what did they get her for? The same things? Is it the same charges you got? Did she get the same amount of time, or is it like very lessened?
No, she went to telling on everybody and anything she could think of
Oh,
and made up stuff. She told so much they had to tell her to stop talking. And
it's all, ma'am, that never happened.
right.
Oh, okay, so you have zero communications with her now.
No, not at all. I have no interest in it. I mean, she, I don't think she's a good person, but I don't really want to slander her either. I
Yeah.
mean, it is what it is. So I
It's
just,
what it is. Yeah. Uh,
God freed me from a bad situation in that aspect.
you dodged a bullet like we dodged the bullet with Kamala, man.
That's
Um,
right.
but and did y'all get divorced in prison? Like you got papers in there, or how did that go?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. She didn't go right away. Uh, so right after I went to prison, she was out for a year and then got arrested a year later and then stayed out for a year on the ankle band and then got sentenced to 2 years. So she was
Oh,
just finishing up her time right when the pardons came.
gotcha.
So,
Okay. So I want to know what was going on in your head when they told you were being released. Did they inform you like, hey, by the way, you're gonna be released later today, or just to end it on a good note? What was that like? That whole situation.
man, it was beautiful. So like it happened really fast and like by this point everybody in the prison was cheering for me.
Oh wow, for
And
real?
yeah, so like it's sick. I heard it. I didn't hear it in his in his inauguration speech, right? And so I was like, oh man, I knew him. I was like, man, I was disappointed. So we were listening to the radio, and I don't remember which talk show host it was. I heard it at 6 o'clock. This is California time. I heard it at 6 o'clock, and by 8 o'clock, they already had me pulled out of the cell, and by 10 o'clock, I was on the street.
Nice. And who picked you up? How did that go?
It was one of the support groups had sent a person to come pick me up, and to be honest, I was I just walked out of a hardcore prison. I just got released from the largest government entrapment scheme in the history of our country and stuff. So I wasn't sure what I was walking into when somebody that I didn't know was picking me up, but it was all great. And I mean, she was so helpful. Her name's Shelly Freeman, and she definitely took care of me. She had an Airbnb, and so I got to unwind a little bit before I flew home and stuff. And she was very helpful. It was a great situation. I mean, I was unnerved at first, but it turned out to be good.
How did that go your first night out? Like, did you get sleep, or you? I mean, I could imagine your mind was going just everywhere. Can you take us into that day?
I felt like I was dreaming. you know,
Yeah, I could imagine.
like I really couldn't believe that it happened. I still can't.
Mm. It's only been, how many days have you been out?
Well, I got out January 20th, and today's March 12th, so I guess
Almost.
it's been about 2 months coming up on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, that's a. I'm sure there's so much more to your story. But I don't want to take up too much of your time, man. But I appreciate the time that you took. I want you to kind of go ahead and give people. I know. Do you have a gifts and go as well? Like,
Yes, I do. It's giftsandgo.com/J6Pete. And that's J6PETE. And then they can follow me on X at J6Pete Schwartz.
all right, and I hope people will contribute to your cause. I know I contributed a little bit, but I'm gonna try to do a little bit more. Every time I get paid, just to kind of help you out. I hope you could get back on your feet. Is everything going well with you right now? Are you like, what's your future endeavors? I know Jess said that she's gonna start doing prison reform stuff. Are you also tagging along with that? And how does your future look?
Absolutely. I'm doing the same thing. I have an opportunity to speak to some Congress about prison reform, and I really feel like I'm a good person to do it because I've seen the underbelly of it. I know I may not have all the answers of how to fix it, but I definitely know what's wrong with it.
Awesome.
So
And that's the
that's
route you're taking. Is it like a group thing that y'all are doing, or is it just you singly in your own
Yeah,
scheme?
some of us are working together on that. So, because I feel like we have a more powerful voice if we use all of our experiences. Because just like you were saying earlier, we each have a different piece of this puzzle. And so, you know, my piece is important, but it's even more important if you combine it with somebody else's piece and people can get the whole picture. So that's something we're going to try to work on together. And it's not just the prison system itself. I mean, I'll never call it a justice system. It's a legal industry. So that's another big area that we really need to focus on as well. So we're going to try to do what we can. I mean, if something good can be gained of it, then I don't mind doing it. But if I just sit out here and let it all be for nothing, then it's just unnecessary pain and suffering. So I'm going to try to use this opportunity and do the best I can.
Can you imagine if Doge were to go into the prison system, bro? All the shit they would find.
I would like to work for Doge.
Yeah, I would. I would love to see Doge go into that, man, because it's so weird because we all know this is happening, but nothing's ever done, and ain't that the weirdest shit in the world? Like, you know this going on, but we're just gonna just allow it. Fuck it. Like, what can we do? And the people need to realize, there's a lot that can be done. We could pressure our politicians to do something about all these things. The prison, I know just in my times in county, man, a couple times I've been in there, you know, the guards, there's no rehabilitation. It's just conformity, and we're going to show our power. Like it's a big dick contest, and, you know, they win all, and it's a terrible situation. I know they've done some strives to kind of get some, helping prisoners have a app, like getting like skills and stuff like that after they get out. And of course, there's people that don't give a shit. Like, you know, like, I don't care. I'm gonna be a thug and whatever. Like, go for it. Go be a thug. But there's a lot of people in there that really do want to change their lives, and we need to have systems in place to help them do those things. And I agree. I hope y'all are very successful in that endeavor that y'all are taking on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really do. We'll definitely link your was it Gibson Go, right? Am I correct?
Yep.
We'll link that, your X account. I hope you get more followers and stuff like that. And man, there's so much I could talk to you about. I know I don't want to waste too much of your time. So anytime that I put on my X yesterday, like any J6er has a place here, they want to tell their stories. And anytime you ever want to come on and talk about some shit, definitely. I'm hopefully you get your life more together. Is there any strides you're making? Like, you feel like there's some good things coming along?
Yeah, I'm putting everything together, you know what I mean? Like the vehicles and everything like that, you know, and I've been a welder for a long time, so I have no issue getting employment back and stuff. Right now I'm just trying to secure ID and stuff because it's kind of funny. I mean, my employer was solid through all this. You know, the FBI went and tried to tell them, oh, you know, you have an insurrectionist working for you and stuff. And like, you got to understand that these people know me every day, right?
Yeah.
And here comes these strangers trying to tell them I'm something I'm not, you know what I mean? And so my job told them, they're like, well, that's cool, but if you see him, tell him we got more work for him, you know what I mean?
So he might be an insurrectionist, but that motherfucker can weld me. So.
Right.
I don't think y'all are insurrectionists, by the way, just so that's clear. Nobody does an insurrection with no ammo or no, like, insurrection needs to be something that is planned out. You know, nobody even knew each other. Like you said, you didn't even know anybody in there. An insurrection would be like, you know, comrades and all this kind of, like, you know, hey,
right.
The guy, we've been in contact, we've been in a group chat. So yeah, definitely not an insurrection. Thank you for sharing that, man. I hope I can talk to you soon.
All right.
If you ever need anything, you have my number, man. You could call me anytime. I'm sure you have some times where you just want to talk to somebody, and I hope a lot of people go and listen to your stories. Can you give the people some other interviews that you've done?
Yeah, I'll try to send you some links and stuff to them.
Okay, that'll be great. Hopefully people can see, because you know, every interview is different, and hopefully they could get more of your story out there, and
Right.
and support the people trying to give you all a voice and stuff like that. But man, other than that, Pete, I appreciate you, brother. Hopefully we can talk soon, man. You have a great day.
Right.
Go in your motorcycle, go get you a little freedom ride, and have a beer. Go have yourself a good time, brother. Have a good week.
All right. I appreciate you.
Yeah, you have a good one, brother.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, so that was Pete. Y'all go support him. I'm going to put all his links below. Make sure if you have any extra, go ahead and contribute to him, or go ahead and follow him on X so he can get more followers and start getting paid for all the stuff that he's bringing out there. Y'all have a great day.